Last week, I told you about a mark on the bottom of a piece of china that most people overlook, or think is a flaw, or walk right past it. Made in occupied Japan. If you watched episode 2, you already know what that means. From 1945 to 1952, the American occupation of Japan, when factories were reopening, a country rebuilding itself, and marking everything they made with those 4 words: made in occupied Japan. This set belonged to my husband's great-great-aunt Christine. We don't know when she got it. We just know that it was post-war. Today we're going to talk about 3 sets of china, 3 women, and 1 question that I think most of us know the answer to. We just need the permission to act on it. Here's what I want you to think about as we go through these. Every one of these sets spent decades in the cabinet, wrapped in tissue, waiting for special occasions that never quite arrived. And I want to know, and I think you want to know, what exactly were we waiting for? Because I've looked at my calendar, and Tuesday is not getting any more special on its own. Christine, we don't have a photograph of her. We don't even have much detail about her life. What we have is this: a set of china that she acquired during the American occupation after World War II in Japan, when Japanese factories were coming back to life and building tableware specifically for Western households. Look at this pattern, the weight of it. Someone in Japan painted this by hand or by a process that required tremendous skill. During one of the most difficult periods in that country's history, and Christine brought it home. It passed to her nephew, then through his family. And now it sits on my table. And on the Saturday after Mother's Day, it held appetizers and desserts at a cocktail party surrounded by women dressed as their favorite iconic mothers. I'm sure Christine would have opinions about that. I just like to think that they would be good ones. While Christine's china was being built in Japan, something was going on the other side of the world. Rosenthal, Selb, Bavaria. The factory had survived the war. West Germany was under American occupation, rebuilding, recovering, and finding its way back to itself again. And the Rosenthal factory in Selb was producing again. My grandfather's sister and her husband were stationed in Germany, and they helped my grandparents acquire this china. I want you to think about that for a moment. 2 countries occupied by the same forces, building beautiful things again, and American families stationed overseas, bringing these beautiful things home to their families. My grandmother's name was Avis. This china has been my Grandma Avis's china my entire life. My mother has it now, and I will inherit it, because it pays to be the oldest daughter of the oldest daughter. The moss rose pattern, white ground, deep crimson roses, gold trim, restrained, elegant, unmistakably European in its best possible way. And as you can see, I love creating vignettes using her china. This china has never been used for Tuesday dinner. Well, that changes in my custody. And then there's mine. Lenox, made in the USA. Cosmopolitan collection, pattern Maywood, trim platinum. Lenox has been making American china since 1889. Woodrow Wilson ordered a state dinner service from them in 1918, the first American-made china in the White House, and every president since has had Lenox at the table. Mine is my wedding china, which means it has also spent a considerable amount of time in the china cabinet, wrapped in tissue, waiting for an occasion worthy of it. I'm working on that. Japan, Germany, and America. 3 factories. 3 women. Christine, Avis, and me. All of us apparently saving things for later. The Saturday after Mother's Day, I threw one of my famous cocktail parties. The theme of this one, dress as your favorite iconic mother. And I was Mother Nature, which gave me an excuse to create a garden theme. The Hira china came out of the cabinet. Christine's set, the one that survived a war, crossed an ocean, and passed through 4 generations of women, held the food. Nobody treated it like it was too good to use, and nobody worried about it. It did exactly what china is supposed to do. It made the table beautiful, and it made the people at it feel like the occasion mattered. Because it did. I want to say something that I think most of us already know, but no one has quite said out loud. The china is not being preserved by just sitting in the cabinet. It is simply going unused. Avis is not more honored when the Moss Rose is sitting in a cabinet for 30 years. She is more honored when I set it on a table and feed the people that I love. And Christine is not more present when the Hira china is wrapped up in a box. She is more present when it holds food at a party with women she never even knew, or even knew her, but who are, in some small way, now connected to her. Use the good china, not someday, not for a better occasion. This one is good enough. You are good enough. Tuesday is good enough. I want to show you one more thing. This right here. When my Grandma Avis's china was passed down through the family, unfortunately, some pieces broke. But that's what happens when you use something that you love. My cousin took the broken pieces and made them into charms. 5 of them. One for my niece, who was Avis's great-granddaughter. I gave it to her for her high school graduation. My cousin made one for her daughter and one for herself, one for another cousin, and one for me. All 3 of Avis's granddaughters and 2 of her great-granddaughters each have a charm. And now we can take her to any occasion we want, any party, any event, any dinner on a Tuesday night. That is what the good china is for. I'm Kelly, this is The Silver Lining, and I'll catch you next time.